The rain had not stopped for 12 days. It fell over the old city of Blackridge like a curse, turning streets into rivers and rooftops into dark mirrors. People hurried beneath broken umbrellas, never looking at each other for too long. In Blackridge, strangers were dangerous. Questions were dangerous too. Ethan Vale stood beneath the rusted clock tower at Central Station, staring at the tracks disappearing into the fog. He was 17 years old, tired of his life, and carrying a letter he did not understand. The envelope had arrived 3 nights earlier without a stamp or sender's name. Inside was only a single sentence written in dark blue ink. If you want to know the truth about your father, board the last train on platform 9 at midnight. That was impossible. His father had disappeared 11 years ago. Everyone in Blackridge knew the story. Adrian Vale had been a railway engineer working on the underground tunnel system beneath the city. One evening he entered Tunnel 6 during a storm and never returned. The police searched for weeks but found nothing except his broken lantern near the tracks. Ethan's mother never spoke about it again. But Ethan had never stopped wondering. Now, with the station clock slowly approaching midnight, he felt his hands trembling inside his coat pockets. The platform was empty. No workers. No passengers. No lights except the pale glow of flickering lamps. Then, from somewhere inside the fog, he heard it. A whistle. Long. Low. Unnatural. The sound echoed across the station like the cry of some ancient creature. Moments later, a black train emerged from the mist. It moved silently. That was the first thing Ethan noticed. No screeching wheels. No rumbling engine. Only silence. The train looked older than any machine he had ever seen. Strange silver symbols were carved into its sides, glowing faintly beneath the rain. The windows were dark, and for a moment Ethan thought the train was empty. Then he saw faces staring back at him from inside. Pale faces. Still faces. Watching him. The train stopped exactly in front of platform 9. The doors opened by themselves. Warm air escaped from inside, carrying the scent of smoke and old paper. Ethan's instincts screamed at him to run. Instead, he stepped aboard. The doors closed immediately behind him. The train began moving before he could change his mind. Inside, the looked impossible. From outside the train seemed small, but inside it stretched endlessly. Golden lamps hung from the ceiling, illuminating red velvet seats and dark wooden walls. Shadows moved strangely in the corners. About 20 passengers sat silently throughout the carriage. Some looked ordinary. Others did not. A woman dressed completely in white held a bird made of glass in her hands. An old man with silver eyes stared out the window, though there was nothing outside except darkness. A young boy around Ethan's age wore gloves stained with black ash. Nobody spoke. At the far end of the carriage stood the conductor. He was tall and painfully thin, wearing a dark uniform untouched by rain or dust. His face seemed too pale, and his eyes reflected light like mirrors. "Ticket," he said calmly. I don't have one." The conductor tilted his head slightly. "You received a letter." Ethan slowly pulled the envelope from his pocket. The conductor smiled. "That is your ticket." He punched a strange symbol through the paper and handed it back. "Welcome aboard the Noctis Express, Ethan Vale." Hearing his own name made Ethan's stomach tighten. "How do you know who I am?" The conductor ignored the question. "We arrive at our first destination in 13 minutes. Until then, remain seated. Do not open the windows. And if you hear knocking beneath the floor..." He paused. "Ignore it." Then he walked away. Ethan sat near the center of the carriage, trying to slow his breathing. This had to be some kind of dream. But everything felt real. Too real. The train accelerated unnaturally fast. Fast. Outside the windows the darkness twisted like moving water. Sometimes Ethan thought he saw shapes running beside the train. Then came the knocking. Soft at first. Tap. 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 Directly beneath his feet. His blood froze. Other passengers pretended not to hear it. The knocking became louder. Tap. 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 Something scratched against the underside of the floor. Ethan stood up instinctively. The boy with ash-covered gloves suddenly grabbed his wrist. "Don't," he whispered. His voice sounded terrified. "What is it?" The boy swallowed hard. "They like curious people." Before Ethan could ask another question, the train lights flickered. The knocking stopped instantly. Silence returned. A moment later the conductor's voice echoed through the carriage. "Arrival in Hollowmere." The train slowed. Outside the windows appeared a town hidden beneath heavy fog. Dim lanterns glowed along empty streets. Every building leaned slightly sideways as if sinking into the earth. But the strangest thing was the people. They stood perfectly still. Hundreds of them. All facing the train. None of them blinking. The doors opened. 3 passengers left the carriage without speaking. No new passengers entered. Ethan noticed something disturbing as the train prepared to depart. The townspeople were smiling. Every single one of them. Wide. Frozen. Inhuman smiles. The doors shut. The train moved again. Ethan turned toward the ash-gloved boy. "What is this place?" The boy hesitated before answering. "The place is between worlds." "What does that mean?" "You really don't know anything, do you?" Ethan shook his head. The boy leaned closer. "The Noctis Express doesn't travel through countries. It travels through forgotten places." "That makes no sense." "It doesn't need to." The boy glanced nervously toward the conductor before continuing. "Some passengers are searching for something. Some are running from something. Others," he lowered his voice further, "are already dead." Ethan felt cold. "You're joking." The boy did not smile. "My name is Lucas," he said quietly. "And if you want to survive this journey, stop asking loud questions." The lights flickered again. This time several passengers looked toward Ethan at once. Their eyes seemed wrong. Too dark. Too empty. Lucas released his wrist immediately and stared down at the floor. Ethan suddenly understood something terrible. Everyone on this train was afraid. Hours passed strangely aboard the Noctis Express. Sometimes the train sped through endless tunnels filled with blue fire. Other times it crossed frozen oceans beneath skies without stars. Ethan lost all sense of time. He and Lucas eventually spoke in whispers. Lucas explained that he had boarded the train 2 years earlier. 2 years? Ethan said. "You've been trapped here?" "I think so." "What do you mean think?" Lucas stared at his reflection in the window. "Time works differently here." Ethan noticed something painful in the boy's eyes. "Do you remember your home?" Lucas opened his mouth. Then closed it again. Slowly, he shook his head. That frightened Ethan more than anything else. As the journey continued, Ethan began noticing strange things about the passengers. Some never moved at all. One woman spent hours writing names into a black notebook without stopping. A man in a green coat kept muttering numbers under his breath. An elderly passenger had no reflection in the window. And always, the conductor watched everything. At what felt like dawn, though there was no sun, the train arrived at another station. This place was different. The platform was covered in snow despite the warm air inside the carriage. Ancient statues lined the station walls, their faces worn away by time. The sign read, "Morvain." The conductor entered Ethan's carriage. 20-minute stop, he announced. Passengers may disembark. Stay within lantern light. Nobody moved. Except Lucas. "We should go," he whispered. Why? Food. Ethan suddenly realized he was starving. They ped onto the snowy platform together. The cold air cut through Ethan's clothes instantly. At the end of the station stood a small market illuminated by orange lanterns. Strange vendors sold objects Ethan could barely understand: bottled shadows, silver keys without locks, clocks that ticked backward. One vendor sold food. If it could be called food. Dark red fruit glowed faintly beneath the lantern light. Lucas handed over several old coins and received 2 pieces. "Eat," he said. Ethan bit cautiously into the fruit. Warmth spread through his entire body immediately. It tasted like childhood memories. Like home. Like happiness itself. For one dangerous moment, Ethan wanted nothing except another bite. Lucas grabbed the fruit away from him. "That's enough." "What was that?" Lucas looked uneasy. "That's why people stay on the train." Before Ethan could respond, shouting erupted nearby. A passenger was running across the platform toward the snow-covered streets beyond the station. "No," the conductor shouted. Too late. The passenger crossed beyond the lantern light. The darkness swallowed him instantly. Then came the screaming. Horrible. Inhuman. The sound echoed through the frozen station. Passengers turned away in silence as the screams abruptly ended. Nothing remained beyond the snow except darkness. The conductor adjusted his gloves calmly. "Departure in 5 minutes." Ethan stared at Lucas in horror. "What was out there?" Lucas answered quietly. "The things that wait for lost travelers." Back aboard the train, Ethan could no longer convince himself this was a dream. The Noctis Express was real. And it was dangerous. That night, unable to sleep, Ethan wandered through the train searching for answers. The farther he walked, the stranger the carriages became. One carriage contained shelves stretching infinitely upward, filled with books whispering softly to themselves. Another carriage had no gravity, objects floated gently through the air. Finally, Ethan discovered a locked door at the very end of the train. Unlike the others, this door was made of black steel covered in silver symbols. He heard something from behind it. Breathing. Slow. Heavy breathing. Then a voice whispered. "Ethan." He stepped backward immediately. The voice sounded familiar. Painfully familiar. "Dad?" Silence followed. Then came 3 knocks from the other side. Ethan reached for the handle. "Don't open it." He spun around. The conductor stood behind him silently. His reflective eyes showed no emotion. "What's behind this door?" The conductor studied him carefully. "Something unfinished." "I heard my father." "Yes." Ethan's heart pounded. "So he's alive?" The conductor did not answer directly. "The dead and the living are closer together here than you imagine." "That doesn't answer my question." "Few answers aboard this train bring comfort." The conductor stepped closer. "You were invited here for a reason, Ethan Vale. But understand this carefully." His voice became colder. "Some truths are doors that should remain closed." Then he walked away. Ethan barely slept afterward. The next several days became a nightmare of uncertainty. The train continued through impossible places. A desert filled with broken statues. A city floating upside down in the sky. A forest where shadows moved independently from their owners. And always Ethan felt watched. Especially at night. One evening Lucas finally admitted the truth. "There's something on this train hunting passengers." Ethan stared at him. "What?" Lucas looked pale. "We call it the Hollow Man." As if hearing the name, several nearby passengers looked away nervously. "What is it?" "No one knows. But every few weeks someone disappears." Ethan remembered the scratching beneath the floor. The knocking. Lucas nodded slowly. "That's how it begins." Later that same night, the lights went out completely. Darkness swallowed the carriage. Passengers froze in silence. Then came the knocking. Not beneath the floor. This time. From the walls. Bang. 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 Something moved outside the windows. A tall shape. Too tall. Its limbs bent unnaturally as it crawled across the train exterior. Passengers began whispering prayers. Ethan's breathing became rapid. Then the creature appeared at the window beside him. Its face had no eyes. No nose. Only a huge smiling mouth stretched impossibly wide. The Hollow Man. It tapped the glass slowly with long gray fingers. Tap. 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 Lucas whispered desperately, "Don't look at it." But Ethan couldn't move. The creature tilted its head, smiling wider. Then suddenly the glass cracked. Passengers screamed. The lights returned instantly. The creature vanished. But one passenger was gone. Only an empty seat remained. Nobody spoke afterward. Not even the conductor. Days later, Ethan finally discovered the truth about the letters. Every passenger aboard the Noctis Express had received one. Each letter promised the thing they desired most. A lost family member. Forgiveness. Freedom. Knowledge. Hope. The train fed on longing. And somehow, Ethan knew his father was connected to it all. One night the conductor approached him privately. "It is time," he said. "For what?" "To see the engine room." Fear crawled through Ethan's chest. But he followed anyway. The conductor led him deep beneath the train through narrow metal corridors vibrating with strange energy. The deeper they descended, the hotter the air became. Finally they reached enormous iron doors. The conductor opened them slowly. Ethan froze in horror. The engine room was alive. A gigantic heart-like machine pulsed in darkness, connected to thousands of black cables resembling veins. The walls breathed slowly. Shadows moved inside the metal itself. And standing before the engine was Adrian Vale. Older. Thinner. But alive. "Dad?" The man turned slowly. His eyes widened with shock. "Ethan." For a moment neither of them moved. Then Ethan rushed forward and embraced him tight. "You're alive." His father hugged him back weakly. "I tried to keep you away from this place." "What is this train?" Adrian looked exhausted beyond words. "A prison." The conductor stood silently behind them. Years ago, Adrian explained, he had discovered ancient tunnels beneath Blackridge leading to something impossible, a gateway between worlds. Hidden there was the Noctis Express, a machine older than civilization itself. The train traveled endlessly through forgotten dimensions, feeding on human desire and regret. And the conductor? He was not human. He was the keeper of the train. An immortal being bound to guide it forever. "When I discovered the truth," Adrian whispered, "I tried to destroy the engine." He looked toward the pulsing machine. But the train needed a replacement. Ethan slowly understood. "You're trapped here." Adrian nodded. "The engine survives through connected souls. It bound itself to me. Then we leave together." His father's expression broke Ethan's heart. "That's impossible." "There has to be a way." "There is." The conductor finally spoke. "But every escape requires a price." Silence filled the room. The keeper looked directly at Ethan. "The train may release one bound soul." Ethan's father stepped forward immediately. "No. You know the law," the conductor replied calmly. Adrian turned desperately toward Ethan. "You must listen carefully. Whatever happens, you cannot stay here." But Ethan already understood the terrible truth. To free his father, someone else had to take his place. The engine pulsed louder. Like a heartbeat. Like it was listening. No, Ethan whispered. His father grabbed his shoulders. You have your whole life ahead of you. And what about you? I made my choice years ago. Tears burned in Ethan's eyes. I can't leave you here. Adrian smiled sadly. You already gave me something I thought I'd lost. What? Hope. The train suddenly shook violently. Alarms echoed through the corridors. The conductor looked upward sharply. The hollow man has entered the hour carriages. Distant screams followed. The keeper's expression darkened. It seeks the engine. What happens if it reaches here? Ethan asked. The conductor answered quietly. Everything ends. The train trembled again. Adrian pushed Ethan toward the exit. Go. I'm not leaving you. You must. Another scream echoed closer this time. The hollow man was coming. The conductor drew a silver lantern from his coat, its blue flame illuminating the dark corridor outside. Decide quickly, he warned. The train cannot survive much longer. Ethan looked between the engine and his father. Then he made his choice. There has to be another way. Adrian almost smiled. You sound exactly like your mother. The lights exploded overhead. Darkness flooded the room. And from the corridor came the sound of slow footsteps. The hollow man had arrived. Its silhouette appeared in the doorway. Tall. Twisted. Smiling endlessly. Passengers' voices whispered from inside its body like trapped souls. The creature stared directly at Ethan. Then it spoke using dozens of overlapping voices. Another lost child. The conductor raised the silver lantern. Blue fire erupted across the corridor walls. The hollow man hissed violently. Run, the keeper shouted. Ethan and Adrian sprinted deeper into the engine room while the conductor fought the creature outside. The sounds behind them were terrifying, metal tearing, unnatural screams, explosions of blue light. At the center of the engine chamber stood a circular platform covered in glowing symbols. Adrian stopped there. This is the control seal. What does it do? It chooses who the train belongs to. Ethan stared at him. You said one soul could leave. Yes. But if the seal is broken. Adrian hesitated. Everyone aboard becomes free. Hope flashed through Ethan instantly. Then break it. His father looked horrified. You don't understand. If the seal breaks, the train dies. Every world connected to it collapses together. The chamber shook again. Cracks spread through the walls. The hollow man's scream echoed nearby. There's no time, Adrian whispered. He stepped onto the platform. Symbols ignited beneath his feet. Ethan realized what he intended. No. Adrian looked at him one final time. You were the best thing in my life. Then he placed both hands against the glowing core. The engine roared. Light exploded through the chamber. Ethan screamed as invisible force hurled him backward. The train began collapsing around them. The conductor appeared suddenly, injured and covered in dark blood. We must leave now. What about my father? Adrian looked peaceful for the first time. The train is releasing you. The engine's light intensified. The hollow man burst into the chamber shrieking furiously, its body tearing apart from the spreading energy. The conductor grabbed Ethan's arm. Close your eyes. Everything vanished in white light. Ethan awoke lying beside the railway tracks outside Blackridge. Rain fell softly around him. Morning sunlight broke through clouds for the first time in days. He sat up slowly, breathing hard. The Noctis Express was gone. Only abandoned tracks remained. For a long time Ethan simply stared at the empty rails. Then he noticed something in his pocket. The punched ticket. On the back, written in blue ink, were final words from his father. Live the life I could not. Years later, Ethan would still hear train whistles in heavy fog. Sometimes, late at night, he dreamed of endless tracks stretching through darkness. And once, just once, he thought he saw a black train moving silently beyond the horizon. But it never stopped again.